So I just finished watching the movie All of You. It's a movie streaming on Apple TV, and it's if you've watched the show Ted Lasso, the boy who acts as Roy is in this movie. He's like the only recognizable face for me. Um, the movie. Let me tell you what the premise is, and it's a question for you. If there was technology like in this movie that exists where they scan your eye and then they tell you who your soulmate is, would you want to know who your soulmate is? Now, I'm sure a lot of you already are like, duh, but let me tell you the counter argument. So the boy in this movie is like, why even gift wrap presents then? Like, why not just present a toaster? Because that's what you're doing. It's like, why won't you want the surprise of finding out by yourself? So that's the counterpoint. If you're like, please, then you're like the girl in this movie who goes on to then do the test and she finds her soulmate and then he doesn't. So that's the premise. I'm not going to give you too many spoilers because anything I say after here, I'm about to get into spoilers. But check out the trailer, see if it's something that you might like, and then if it's something that you're interested in watching, watch it, and then you can come back and we'll talk about this with spoilers. Now, if you've already watched this movie or you do not care about spoilers, then spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. So while I was watching, I took notes, and I'm just going to tell you my thoughts as the movie progressed because it literally started from one place and ended at another. So when the movie first starts, right, the chemistry between both of them, like the two leads, the characters are called Simon and Laura, and their chemistry is already off the chains. They are like friends, and they have such a beautiful friendship. Like they make each other laugh. They have the very similar sense of humor, and then Simon is the one that funds Laura's decision to go. Like he funds her test to find her own soulmate. So, but he doesn't because, as I said already, he's of the belief that he wants to find it organically. So when she then does that, it turns out that her soulmate is a man named Lucas. And so she and Lucas then go off into a relationship and Simon is left alone. But then we then see this scene. I think that's the first note that I wrote here was there's a scene in the car where Laura is bleeding and then Simon comes for her and he's like distracting her from the bleeding and he's making her laugh. And you can just really see that, oh, these two have such insane chemistry. And that was so beautiful. And I think at some point, because we are going through time in this movie, like time is really jumping, not too far but like just ahead in their lives, and there's a moment where I think they're talking and they go like, we both have lives because they're not seeing themselves as much as they used to before Lucas entered into the picture. And so when they say we both have lives, I as a viewer, I'm like, but you guys could have shared this life, like, rats, like this could have been such a beautiful thing. And I'm so team Simon and team Laura at this point. I'm like, I can see it now, I can see this so well. And then in that same scene where Simon takes Laura to the hospital, Lucas then comes in after because he was late from the office. That's why Simon had to be the one to take her. So now he's coming, Lucas, and obviously that's her man. And so Simon is kind of like looking at them with kind of jealousy because he's no longer her person. She now has her own person and he doesn't. So then Laura introduces Simon to a girl named Andrea. And there's this beautiful scene, I think, just this wonderful scene, like just like an acting masterclass as far as I'm concerned, where they have a dinner scene. And Laura is talking about her feelings for Lucas and how she's so lucky to have found Lucas. And while she's talking to Lucas, looking at Lucas, Simon is looking at Laura with like a longingness, a sadness, right? Because you can tell that he has feelings for this girl. And Andrea is looking at Simon, looking at this. So I just loved how much was not said, the amount of subtext. It was just so like, oh, this is a good way of like really showing the dynamics here. And I love that acting. Like that scene is one of like my favorite scenes, just because of what wasn't said and just the way the actors all looked, and what the subtext in that scene was just brimming with subtext. And we are like, oh gosh. And then I kept on having the thought that Lucas isn't even a bad guy. Like Lucas is such a good guy, but it's just like, oh, I can really see the vision though with Simon and Laura. Like, why didn't they get this on? And then that is when things start to turn because as I'm saying all this, they finally kiss. Like after, because there's her father dies, Laura's father dies, and then at the wake, she finally asks Simon that, were you secretly hoping that like, did you fund the test that I did because you were secretly hoping that I would be the one that would come up as your soulmate? And he's like, nah. But I think they both get a sense that like that was kind of what he was hoping because it's unsaid. There's so much in the subtext. There's so much subtext in this movie, and so after I guess some just deliberating, they're both kind of alone. And next thing, Laura shows up at Simon's door and they get at it, like, they get it on. At that moment when I'm watching, even me that had been saying, oh, it would have been so nice, I'm watching and I'm going, this is an affair. This is an affair. The moment that it starts happening, I'm like, oh no, not like this, not like this, not like this, because this is an affair. And it just keeps getting worse because immediately after that, exactly what I happened now, exactly what I feared then happens, because you can tell that Laura immediately regrets this, because we now see that apparently after they had that moment, Laura has just kind of like cut communication with Simon. He's been trying to reach out to her, and he finally does. And she's like, "Stop calling me. Should I get a restraining order against you?" And he's like, "I'm just trying to reach out to you." And she's like, "Don't, like I regret everything that happened because, of course, she is married with a child. This is an affair, Simon." But after that, she still doesn't let him go. They meet outside, and suddenly they start meeting like, so she would lie to Lucas that she's going for a business thing, but during this business thing she will go and meet up with Simon. So they will be having this like vacation hookups. Like every time she would go to a conference, he would meet her up there, and then they would have a time together. And that is kind of what it then becomes. And all I'm just watching, because obviously they are having this thing, but there's also, you can still feel the guilt and the sadness, especially that Laura is carrying, because again, Lucas is a good man. She is a mother, and this is an affair. And that's, in the words of a prophetess, that's the thing about illicit affairs. They lie and they lie and they lie, and they just start telling lies, and they know that what they're doing is bad. And all I'm just thinking as a viewer is like, why did you guys have to wait till she was married to finally have this moment with each other? Like, why couldn't you guys have just gotten it on when she wasn't married and this wasn't an affair? By the end of the movie, though, because again, they're doing this affair, there's all this guilt, and even I'm watching, I'm just like, all I keep thinking is, why didn't you guys do this when she was single? But then they have a final, like towards the end, I think, Laura tells Simon, like, I hope you didn't regret, or I hope I'm not the one that made you not, like, find your own soulmates or whatever. And he says, these moments with you have been the highlight of my life. And I'm just watching it and I'm like, but you guys could have gotten it on. Like, there was no need to wait for her to get married to then do this. Like, you could have just gotten it on. I think that's my biggest frustration with this movie, is that, like, while it's a very beautiful story, a very beautiful film, like, and the actual thing that is going on, I'm like, nobody forced you, like, nobody was against your romance. You guys could have gotten it on from the beginning. You didn't have to wait for her to get married and for this to now be an affair. Like, unlike Past Lives, which is one of my favorite movies, Past Lives, you can really see that they really tried, and you can see the things that kind of get in their way: traveling, distance, life, and all those things. But in this one, I'm like, there's no real opposition to your love. Like, you guys are the ones that just didn't get it on until she was married, and then you decided to start having the romance after she got married, and now with an affair. But you're like, I was still going to stand here for you. And obviously at some point, look, Simon is asking her to get a divorce, and she's like, I don't want to get a divorce. Like, I'm like, but why did you even have to wait for all this? Ultimately, I really enjoyed this movie, especially at the beginning when I was really rooting for their relationship. But then once it started entering affair territory, and from affair territory on, I was like, I can't get behind an affair. I'm so sorry. I'm just one of those people, I cannot get behind an affair. So at that point, I was like, yeah, y'all could have gotten this on when she wasn't married. And that is like my only thing. Because the movie then ends, I guess, with the, this moment spent with you were the highlights of my life. And then she goes her own way, and then he goes his own way. All I'm just thinking is, I really wish you had just given this a go before this girl got married. If you've been watching this video and you do not know who I am, my name is VDK. I make movie bingo cards, which you can find on my Substack, vdkfilmclub.substack.com, and I also talk about films. Until the next movie that I watch and the next video that I make, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.